What is going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, Leo King, and welcome to Deep Astrology, your weekly astrology forecast for this week of December the 23rd through the 29th of 2025. Thanks so much for being here. And of course, thanks so much for being a part of highvibe.tv. If you are not, you miss out on Deep Astrology every week. This is my little Christmas gift out there to the public. It's been a long time since I did a Deep Astrology for you all. But if you're on High Vibe TV, I've never stopped doing it every week for 7 years now, 8 years. So, of course, the true spiritual collective weekly astrology horoscope and the one and only Deep Astrology. It's good to be here with you. Happy holidays, everyone. Of course, if you don't know, I'm astrologer David Palmer, Leo King, and I'm here to channel the astrology and then go deep into the charts for this week. Not going to lie, I'm excited to do this horoscope because what we have been going through, boy, oh boy, that has not been an easy energy. I'll be happy definitely to do this report for this week because it's completely different vibes. But we have to remember the new season we're in. We just, of course, had this solstice. And this solstice is really the season of change. Like, for real, this season, from this moment that we're in now till we get to the spring and the equinox, so much is going to change that we're no longer like, counting seasons anymore. We're in the season of change, literally. So I'm very happy that we're here, but at the same time, the spiritual tests that have been going on and the bigger kind of conscious work we've all been having to do and dealing with our own subconscious issues has been extreme, and it's easy to tap out. And I want to remind people to definitely not be tapping out right now. So of course, I have a couple things, of course, promo-wise, right? So Spirit Dial is fully launched now with also the new crystal ball feature and, of course, the tarot pulls, but, of course, the call that you can do straight with Lady Avalon. Full live voice, of course, text chat, but also audio recordings that are sent to you. I'll put up a little thing in here to show people the... oh, really? I don't have... Oh, good. There we go. Yes, there we go. Thank you. Sure. Now you're signed in? I should have just done that. I'm on my iPad. I don't use this thing to log in on anything, but yeah, there we go. All right, so this is actually a really cool new feature that's on here. So when you get to the dashboard of Spirit Dial AI, it's super cool because text chat, if you want to go in there, of course, I have my warnings before you begin, mental health crisis, all that stuff. But this is where you would have your traditional chat, but there's also the audio that can be done. And you can also do a quick or a deep on the logic and the reasoning behind the full intuitive Lady Avalon that is fully trained from 19th century, 18th century clairvoyance. And then I've mixed her also with modern ways of, it's been a lot of training for her. Of course, live voice, that gets put down in there. You can do that. But the newest feature, of course, crystal ball, right? So it's kind of cool. Like, you could be like, what do you see for my love life? So we're going to be like, how is this deep astrology going to go? And so we can reveal the vision this way. If you have never been on it, if you go to the website, which I'll do again while that's loading here, everybody gets one free image. You could try it for free. And you could also have it just pull an image for you. So she channels the image as well. You can also share these images out to your friends publicly, social media-wise, and so forth. And then, of course, the tarot pull is pretty crazy that I've got on it as well. But just mixing with all the forms of like a full-blown psychic and have fun with the medium stuff. It's pretty wild. I've got her open to that place. And I have all the images in the newest GPT 1.5 that just came out. And so you can get very clear images. And so it's saying the shadows stretching. Okay, so you know what? This feels like a deep astrology. We're going to get deep into this. Got some occult energy going on. I like it. But anyway, of course, you could share it wherever you want to go. And SpiritDial.ai has really blossomed. Of course, Past Life Labs, of course, is blowing up. It's crazy how many people are finding this on Google. I have not dropped the full past life regression part. This is more about the free. This is a full free reading. When I mean full free reading, it really legitimately is. But if you want to get the paid part, which is a full 25-page report on your past life with all of my past life astrological insight over the last 15 years and so forth, that's mixed into with all this. This is definitely the place. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out with that. I also wanted to show people this, hold on one sec, on Hypergate, because I just wanted to show, it's not out yet, but you should be on already, but I just want to show you this. I just want to show people a little teaser of what's to come that's already being tested. And of course, I am your guinea pig already. But so in Hypergate right now, in the testing of some of the new stuff that Jim has worked on. So now when you're in the gateway, when you click here, this will give you more options with the reasoning. If you just want that quicker horoscope, that quicker chart tool to, when was this planet here? When was that? Or if you're doing a synastry reading or a composite reading with you and somebody else and wanting to know what they're going through their life and you want it quicker, but you want the response short, like just give me these stupid answers. You could just, boom, do that, right? So you want a quick, short answer, or you want to go deep and you want to go detailed, right? On the beginning, it starts with quick. When you ask the next question, then you can enhance. Especially because part of Hypergate.ai, when you click today, right? So what's going on for today, this is pulling off my chart, right? So it's just pulling off myself and looking at my astrology, and then of course taking in all the data and what's going on with that. But you could definitely, of course, with all of the different agents that are involved here, specifically pick the ephemeris one, the natal charts and synastry, the human design, agentic, the cycle trends, of course. And then if you need support in your life, with making decisions with astrology and giving you the next steps, maybe you're confused about something, but you can see it's a lot more quicker and giving you these kind of things. Of course, this is where the tuning is fun to kind of go deeper into that when you do a new message, when I type it in. But of course, Sun and Mars Capricorn today, Sun at 1.6 degrees Capricorn, Mars at 5.9 as we're doing this, all this kind of stuff, and going into your own horoscope. I mean, you could see how much we give you every day just on this. And then, of course, you can go anywhere in the gateway. But this is going to be the new version that's coming out in the next week. Of course, it's already like this, but as far as really fine-tuning Hypergate, this is where it's just going to be so badass. And it already is so much better. I mean, this is how much we give you and then there's, of course, that short version of it, of course, going into stuff, whether it's your 12th house or whatever you're going through, right? So there's so many aspects. Actually, it was kind of crazy. What was that last part there? Tell me what's most alive for you today, work, relationships, inner life. You can go into that. So if I were to be like, hey, I'm doing Deep Astrology Live, what should I tell people? And then we can come back to this. We'll have fun with this. So we're going to do deep and detailed. Boom. So anyway, my image for this week is the stairway that's kind of back and forth. Like, this is the vision that I have when I'm channeling this astrology horoscope. We're in Capricorn season. We just hit the solstice. We have Mars in Capricorn. We got Venus coming into Capricorn after a big square to Neptune this week we got to talk about. But the main thing here is all this Capricorn starting to build, and especially Venus and Mars starting to be combusted by the sun. We can't see them both. And in this next 2 weeks, we're going to be seeing the Cazimis to both within a 6-day period, the January 4th and January 10th. But so it's really going to be really focused on Sun, Mars, Venus, and also Mars and Venus will be out of bounds. So in declination. So it's going to be quite a completely different vibe than all the Sag that we had and the big squares of Saturn, Neptune in Pisces. But there is this, to me, February through April is the big new doorway of the new world beginning. And then that doorway kind of being more than a lobby, like fully like July of 26. But like from now until February, when the door really starts with this new Saturn-Neptune conjunction, this is us building those steps out of where we were into that space, right? And this is very Capricorn. And there's no more Pluto Capricorn. I said on my new moon horoscope for people out there that aren't on high vibe. Hey, yeah, the last time Mars came into Capricorn, Pluto was in Capricorn, but not this time. So there's not that extra like obsession, that punch, that little steroid that you want to like try and jump every level. This is more about taking the step-by-step approach, seeing what's been shattered with this Venus square Neptune here of the illusion, and really focusing on the dreams to come true. And really starting to put those plans together, squashing all the stupid shit. This is Capricorn. Let's get back to that more together place and get out of all this sloppy energy that we've been in and really getting back on track here to get us to that place. You might call it the stairway to heaven, however you want to call it. That's the image that I have for this week. Now, channel-wise, it's been a mess. I mean, if you just think about just this summer when we saw all these new outer planets and new signs, saw Jupiter come into Cancer, exalted, everything felt like, woo, we're seeing the glimpse. And then it's like been that Mercury retrograde that happened. Of course, that was in Leo. And when we saw some major yads, actually, that kept triggering because we had Neptune in Aries and we had Uranus in Gemini. And then, of course, we had Pluto in Aquarius. So we saw massive amounts of yads, whether it was around that 0 to 1 degree of Scorpio or that 0 to 1 degree of Virgo. And that was putting a lot of pressure as this reality shifting. And now it's like us been in the full backwards tilt. It almost feels like we fell down those fucking stairs and just, oh my God, we just tumbled. We got so close to up there. We were like, yeah, we're fucking there. And then it's just like, no, my God, geez, it's fucking Neptune back in Pisces, Saturn back into Pisces. Oh gosh, Uranus back into Taurus. And then all this sloppy energy, even the Scorpio season was just, ugh. And then with the Mercury retrograde and Sag back into Scorpio, opposite Uranus, three times, but twice with Taurus and once with Gemini. I mean, that's just already too much for people to compute. So this is the first week that we get a moment here to go, okay, shit, what did I learn there? What did I spiritually learn? What do I have to get rid of subconsciously? And this is about yourself, your own stuff. We all need to be more open, more vulnerable. We all need to take down our armor, Chiron and Aries, Jupiter and square to that. And I feel that now that we're in Capricorn, it's like, even with this Capricorn, to succeed, you don't need your armor on. You don't need your defensiveness. You don't need to be all, all of this comes always back to our deeper spiritual roots, our past. I mean, think about Jupiter being in Cancer in retrograde, square Chiron and Aries. I mean, there's definitely a lot when it comes to how our wounds are coming out, how we were raised, our family, all this kind of stuff comes up. I've realized a lot, where my defenses could be. It's like been the biggest ego buster of a lifetime, because you start realizing in life, why do we put up defenses, or why do maybe we're not able to hear people fully, right? The Pisces is escape in so many areas. Some people might, use alcohol, right? And that's their way of, I don't want to deal with the situation, or I don't want to even be fully vulnerable. I've noticed this a lot in a bunch of men's spiritual Instagrams I follow, that a lot of men are waking up to like, wow, we don't fucking understand sometimes how to truly be vulnerable or truly hear people fully, because we think we're doing the right thing all the time. Oh, I'm working hard. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And I'm sure there's lessons there for the feminine, but I'm not going to give those lessons out. That's not my place to do right now. Like, that's not my place. But that's the whole, like, part of the lesson of me saying this is like, where can you take your accountability in your life right now? Capricorn. For whatever is sloppy is about accepting that you're sloppy, but it's about asking for forgiveness, whether it's external, but most importantly, internal. You can't do any true, proper energy outward if you can't forgive yourself within. So you can't forgive outside if you can't forgive yourself within. But you got to be accountable. And so this is where we have to really step into accountability of like how important this mission is in our life spiritually. Where have we created, and I think there's a lot of harmless energy. Like, I don't think all people are horrible people. I think that people genuinely have to wake up, even ourselves, through this journey all the time. To think that you have fully figured it out is crazy. And I think there's been a lot of lessons. I think there's also been a lot of things that just kind of finally have really, in a weird way, with all this Pisces energy, with Saturn, Neptune now stationed direct, all this energy of Venus finally finishing the square to Neptune after being in square to Saturn during this new moon. Of course, we saw the new moon square Neptune. Of course, we saw Mars in square to Neptune. Those transits have been crazy these last couple of weeks. And really, if you just take, since like the end of summer, it's not been easy at all. This is the first moment where it's going to be easier the more accountable you are. The more vulnerable you are, the more that you don't have your guard up, the more energy that you give to allowing healing to take place means you have to take off your armor to get to those wounds. You have to take off your ego to get to those wounds. You have to be willing to be emotionally held in order to nurture back too. Right? So it very much is a very huge window of opportunity here for you to really get to the things that we really want in our life, which is a life, whatever that meaning or fulfillment is for you. What's that dream look like for you? How do we shatter the illusion that it's not possible and actually uplift the version that is possible? This is why I love Capricorn now that Pluto's out. It gets back to just basic accountability. It doesn't need to be so extreme. It just needs to be vulnerable, right? Capricorn, well, with Pluto that was there from 2008 to 2024, I mean, people would do anything just to like want their reputation to never be hurt. Fuck reputation. Reputation's the thing we cling on the most when it comes to our ego. And I think that this is definitely a time where it's like, what's the cool spiritual thing? Vulnerability, taking accountability, and taking your ego down. I mean, it's like not that hard, but it's hard to get there, especially the more driven you are as a person. And that's where Pisces is really allowing us, the Saturn-Neptune, conjunction that's been here. And of course, you've seen it even closer together in Aries. It was weird. It came into Aries this year and then kind of gave us like a little heads up, like, don't bring a fucking ego into this motherfucker. Oh, okay. So I look at what we've been going through is like, we have lots of versions in ourself here that we've had to go, okay, I've had to look at it now multiple different ways in order to get to this place where, can I take the armor down? Can I be accountable? Can I really clear the spiritual bullshit in order for me to actually get to the true vision? I said at the beginning of this year, whatever your dream is, there's a bigger dream. You have to let it go. Your ego has to let it go in order to really let the universe and let God come in to show you that vision. This is where that vision starts to come together. The construction of the vision begins, especially this week, especially with that Venus squaring Neptune. Even though it can bring illusion, it could bring even sensitivity to matters, relationships, money here, especially Venus and Sag, almost whatever you've believed it's supposed to look like, the expectations. And I drop all those. What if I were to tell you that, this glass door, this glass mirror, this glass window, you might think that's the biggest version of like what you see and what you expect to see life be and what you need to have. Guess what? What if there's a way bigger window with way better angles for you to see everything? That's what we have to remember here. And it's about how well you're willing to address within yourself where you can clear out your own shit. And that's our responsibility. That's what this is all about. Responsibility being in Capricorn. Our responsibility as a collective, and the most important version of that is individually, is the accountability and the responsibility to not let our subconscious shit, to not let our repressed shit, to not let all of our stupid psychological shit fuck everybody else up besides our ego. Like, nobody is off the hook on this one. We are all idiots and could be better. We all have things that are triggering, and that's exactly when you dive in and go, you know what? And if I really want my life to be badass, let me have courage to face situations. There's been lots of conflict, or should I say with Pluto and Aquarius, more of like complex situations. And that's where Pluto and Aquarius has a hard time, right? Aquarius wants to bug out, wants to kind of distance itself. Pluto, that's the ruler of Scorpio. It wants you in the cave to be your sweetheart forever. You know what I mean? Never leave. So Pluto and Aquarius is very much this kind of weird dance of hot and cold, but it's more about emotional and non-emotional. And that could be very avoidant and anxious, right? If you go to attachment style, but also complex situations here. And I think that that's been the trigger, because that's the one outer planet that stayed, right? We've seen it for over a year now. Of course, we've seen this full ingress into Aquarius, the beginnings of it in 2023, 2024, and November, of course, being the full ingress. And, we've seen it for over a year now, and we've got the Sun, Mars, and Venus in Capricorn, and they're all with Mercury behind. Everything's moving towards that Pluto now, right? And so I think that, before we get to that Pluto, when we get into Aquarius season, it's like, is it that complex? Because what I think is complex is when you look at the world today and you think of like, what the fuck is 3A Atlas? Really? What is going on about the AI life? What is going on about fucking everything that's so weird? It's all very complex, a really different world we live in. Well, let's fucking narrow the field to make our lives very much more Capricorn, in alignment and in tune, in order for us to clear subconscious energy, to find vulnerability, to clear our wounds here of our ego. So when we get into this complex world that's going to be cool because it's different and new, but it will have massive complexity, that's a guarantee, that we're not bringing all of our sloppy subconscious shit, all of our beliefs that are outdated and old, into that new world. And this is where, it's Christmas this week. Merry Christmas. We're getting ready for the new year. And yeah, there's a lot of new energy on this new year. Probably the most of our whole lives that we've ever felt, which is a good thing. Not a bad thing at all. But as we've been approaching it, it has brought up the most sensitive shit. As long as you're somebody who's willing to have the responsibility as a light worker to be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to hold space for you. I think that this is really where light workers, we're kicking our stupidest shit from deep past lives out of what our patterns are. I've always noticed for the 15 years I've been doing this, right? Like, this community can demonize people like no other. The same with Christians and Jews and Muslims too. But I think that this demonization tactic, unless you're like kind of doing some weird ass fucking Erica Kirk shit or some weird ass other shit, that we're seeing out there, that's different. When it comes to your brothers and sisters, okay? those that we really truly care for and love, can you be responsible and hold space that we're all here at this final moment? We have waited so fucking long to get to this moment, the season of change that we've all waited for. The doorway's here, the portal's here. That's why I always told you 3i Atlas is a messenger that, that we're here at this point. Of course, I believe there will be a discovery, not about 3i Atlas, but it's showing us to a bigger discovery when it passes over by Jupiter. I've said that since July. But I will say that when we have finally made it, one thing about Pisces that I don't like, being a 12th houser, is that it's easy to give up. And I remember every time in my life I gave up. That's why my patterns never broke. That's why I always felt like there was always some hurdle in front of me. It was because I gave up, or because I didn't put my spiritual life first, or because I wasn't willing to look within my own issue. The big question should be, why am I manifesting this if you have something troubling you? Like, we have to hold space for the other light workers in our life and around, and go, hey brother, hey girl, hey sister, hey, I fucking love the weird shit, the hard shit, the not the nice shit. We're all here holding each other's hands to help each other out. You know how much easier that'll feel? Because one thing, there's this feeling in the collective, and where I think the greatest wound is this feeling for support. I notice, I'm a married man with kids, so I'm very blessed. I think the most blessed you could be, right? I have a young family. I've got 2 young kids, my amazing, beautiful wife who definitely holds space for me to grow as much as I do for her. That's the best thing you could ever ask for in the world. There is no lonely when you have that. When I have a young family, we're growing our kids, but I see there's a lot of people not feeling support. And some might be in where maybe they don't have it in a family, but they have it great at work. For me, I've got the support of Ann and Natalie and high vibers and stuff. But when it comes to like what I've been doing out in the world with work, have people question, oh, you're doing AI. Oh, you're doing this. I'm like, yeah, same thing. You guys thought I was weird when I did tarot in 2010, told me in one feather that was like never going to work to do tarot on YouTube, that it only can work in person. Look at YouTube tarot today. So wherever it is, the big wound is about support. So my call to people, and what I'm channeling here with this astrology now in Capricorn, is it's part of our duty. Fuck the word responsibility, our duty to hold the highest spiritual energy. Now, back in 2020, especially even in 2019, when I was doing deep astrology, if y'all remember, right, the era of providence was what I was calling 2020, and that it would go for the next decade. But that's because of what? Neptune was in Pisces and Saturn was in Capricorn. And we saw Jupiter and Sag. We saw all these big planets that would stay in their domicile homes for a long time. But the sextiles between Saturn and Neptune then were powerful, especially with Pluto, then you added to it too, right? To me, we have to remember that now as we come into all this Capricorn, and a very rare, long-term stellium of a combustion of the sun with Venus and Mars. That's going to start aligning with all this Pisces, the North Node's in Pisces. This is that where the duty is to hold that spiritual space. Now, where's the boundaries to that? That's where Aquarius gets complicated. It does. But, I would say that boundary still has to be like, am I being still cool and understanding we're all fucking weird? Where's that line? Because we can't abandon, people. I think the biggest thing that hurts me the most watching just in the world today, and I think because I felt this during 2020 and 21, is people just abandoning people because of their viewpoint, right? Like, I got fucking canceled hard because of my predictions about the plague and that it was all going to be bullshit and don't take the shot. and yada, 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 right? I said all of that shit forever, and I predicted it years prior, exactly to what it would be. But now people are canceling people again in other ways. Now it's also, spiritual belief-wise, to wherever you want to go. I don't think that's the path. This is not a path about canceling people. Now, granted, you don't need to have them in your life if you feel it so bad, but you have to reflect, like, why am I not able to be a good human being and just at least maybe hold some space, right? You have to be able to reflect, like, why am I projecting this into my life? Why am I manifesting this? Am I following my duty? Now, some people might have questions. What is my duty? Well, the number one duty as a light worker is to show up here to inspire others and to hold space for fellow people who do the same so we can all ascend and get through each other's shit. I can tell you, because I've been friends with so many people in this community for so fucking long, that if I were to be a normal person who wasn't spiritual, I wouldn't probably be friends with them all, especially the Lightworker community, right? Because you're like, oh my God, this person, I held space for them there, or they held space for me there, or whatever. We all fucking have our fuck ups. What's the true testament in your life spiritually, and the true judgment, if I were to use the tarot, of when the trumpet calls, is how that judgment moment is like your testament of whether or not within you withhold your service here, which is the duty to hold that space for the divine, to hold that space for yourself, to hold that space for others that are in the same conscious state and be going through their shit. That's what makes our bond stronger. So I think this Venus square Neptune is, where have your beliefs taken you away from that true compassionate place of that holding of space? It's easy to just go based off of what you perceive right away and the story that you create. We have to stop creating projection stories and take our defenses down, take our triggers down, and be able to communicate correctly. And you're going to have to, that's where the form of trust is that this is where trust might be hard with Pluto and Aquarius, right? Because it almost feels like, well, that's such a weird angle you're looking at things. It's easy to watch a fucking video and be like, well, everybody's supposed to be just like a fucking human machine and we all act the same way, and we don't. And allow ourselves with this Mercury that happens to be still in Sag after a retrograde back into Scorpio. Like, what's the answer to that? There hasn't really been one. It's starting to emerge as it's finished the square to the nodes, and here it is heading into Sag, and it's the last planet that's going to have to make big squares to Saturn and Neptune. But I think that, where the problem's been, because we've had a long-term Mercury that's not been happy, has been in how we communicate. Then add to the boot Jupiter, which rules over Sag. We've had this big Sag transit, and it's been Jupiter retrograde, square Chiron. So it's like, of course, it's not some big journey or adventure like, yay, we're going to the fucking awesome adventure. It's like the adventure is lessons, learning, growing, having to ditch old belief systems, even subconscious ones. And so I think this is a great week that we do step into. All right, let's take a look here. We're going to do, of course, that look into the 3D, what's going on in the helio. And especially now that we're seeing this Sun-Venus and Sun-Mars really start to come together on the other side of the sun from Earth's point of view, there's a lot definitely to be looking at here. All right, so, enable, okay, yeah, star names, yes, okay. Show, and then asteroid belt off. Okay. So here we are from Earth's view. Here we are as we come into this month. I'm doing this on Monday night, but here we go. Let's just do this Tuesday the 23rd here. And as you can see on the other side, there is Mars and Venus. And so we're seeing that sun combust. We can't see them, right? It doesn't matter if it's morning, noon, night. Doesn't matter. You're not going to see Mars and Venus at all. Now, they're in the southern sky. which is really interesting too, since we can't see the southern sky. And it's even more interesting to me about it because it's like they're out of bounds. Really? Not like, it's like, this is definitely where, sure, Venus and Mars, when they're combust and they're super close to the sun, can burn things out. Our desires, our wants, our needs, right? Relationships, money, projects, all these kind of things. But what if we look at the positive about this? What if this is burning off all the shit that needed to be burned off and allowing this to re-purify and to really, make it the way it was supposed to be spiritually aligned to do, and with the lessons that we learned from that, so we take that into the new earth and the new world, right? That eventually does come. Also, by the way, when we're looking out, of course, we have Mercury, starting to head towards the other side. So Mercury is definitely speeding up. So things will be definitely feeling a lot quicker, especially if we only have 2 planets retrograde now. Saturn's direct, Neptune's direct, thank God. So things are going to start speeding up. And that Mercury, if we get to the end of this week, when we get back to the 29th, I always do Deep Astrology live Monday nights, and it's for Tuesday to Mondays. But as you can see, once we're around the 29th here, we're getting that Mercury close. We're going to start to see that conjunction. Once we get to like this January 4th time, we start really seeing some really big fireworks this week. The first week of January is like, whoa. And then Mercury coming by. When we get to that 10th, of course, holy moly, that's going to be some really powerful energy right there. And then 3i Atlas, by the way, it's not on here, but it will be, because there's Jupiter, it will be there. And it's more like, like on that 9th, like that's January 9th, like crazy. And Mercury will be coming by there. And then we come into some Pluto, of course, which will be, of course, Earth, right? Opposite Pluto. And so you can see Pluto down there too. Now, I know that's a couple weeks away, but we have to remember that this is the beginning of that coming into this week. So let's take a look at what I mean by that. So here, December 23rd, we do got the sun here. So I was seeing if people were saying if anything was wrong with my sound or anything, but it looks like we're good. We got the sun here, of course, 2 degrees of Capricorn as we come into this Tuesday, and Venus there, 28 degrees, exactly at the same place of where the new moon was, in square to Neptune, just like the new moon was. And so, again, what outdated value system have a belief placed on it that's really not allowing you to be vulnerable and to take in new information, to receive from the universe, from others? Right? This is our time to really take our guards down and let our sensitive stuff. Like, are we sensitive? Why are we triggered? Why are we these things? We got to get to the root of these things. And that's the big culprit. Chiron, of course, in Aries retrograde, and Jupiter in Cancer in square. Remember, Jupiter and Chiron are attached at the hip in the story, in the mythology. Without Jupiter, Chiron cannot become immortal again. Right? And so it could feel like there's no way I'm ever getting out and my life is just going to go to hell in a handbasket, because Chiron feels that way when he does get the mortal wound that brings him to mortality. The sacrifice that he does have to make that seems fucked up in order to regain himself immortal again. Right? So when you get stuck into this thing, like I'm sacrificing and I'm not getting anything that I want out of it, you got to ask yourself, where's your part? That's the ego talking. Get back on this human spiritual level. Now, what I like about being grounded here in Capricorn without Pluto in Capricorn is, you know what? We can understand our duty. We can understand the responsibility without there being some sort of objective kind of like even obsessive reason for it, or putting too much meaning on it. Now with Mars, it's happy. It's exalted here. We got Mars here. Definitely going through Capricorn, leading the way. But you know what? This Mars has been pissed. And this is why Chiron, I think, has been very, dare to say, since it's very Mars, inflammation. It's been a lot of inflammation, a lot of like rash energy. Like, why? Because Mars wants to lead the way and everything's been behind and in square to Saturn and square to Neptune. And it had to go through that. And everything's trailing. And it's realizing the sun is catching up to it to pass over that, right? Plus, there's Venus catching up too. Now, Mars likes that, right? So this is definitely going to be interesting because we've seen lots of Mars Venuses. Of course, we see them every couple of years. And then we see them, of course, during retrogrades. And we saw the trines, of course, during this year with Venus and Mars in Pisces to Cancer and in Aries to Leo. But, you know, this is going to be the official one that comes, and it happens to be happening with the sun there in the weeks ahead. So this is the beginning of that. The moon, of course, starts this week in Aquarius. We're in that new moon ending and in that crescent moon phase. And so we really are, you know, really looking ahead now. But Venus square Neptune is, you got to shed any of these belief values or incorrect views. And the only way you'll know it's correct is that you need to have many options. It could be this, it could be that, it could be this, and being open and being vulnerable and not, I know exactly what it is, right? This problem with all the Sag is, I know, my ego knows. No, you don't. Your ego doesn't know shit. You know, that's very not in duty and purpose. Duty and purpose isn't about I know. Duty and purpose is, you know what? I'm not attaching all my emotions into this. And emotions are a great place when we're in that vulnerable space. They're not a good place when we're in that protective state. Of course, Venus in quincunx to Uranus here. This is also interesting too, because we're seeing everything that's coming at the end of Sag here, making that square to Neptune and Saturn, and then of course making a quincunx over to Uranus. So the two planets of relationship, Venus and Uranus, in a weird angle here. But there's also this reminder that, you know, Venus is pretty close to Mars, within less than 10 degrees. There's already a stellium building. But they're in Capricorn, so they're intercepted by sign. But, you know, I think that this is that point where it's like, you know what, things are weird. I need to remember I'm creating. It's Taurus. And I have to uplift my values and my tools, and I have to do it in a better way. I can't just blow everything up and think I can rebuild. No, this is about, like, how do I find a much more better way to connect through not letting my values fully block maybe a new opportunity or a new way to construct things in a better way. One thing I like about Capricorn is about constructing the framework here. There's a new framework that's starting to be drawn out right now. And if you're in that positive energy, you'll feel that in a positive way. But you got to get to that vulnerable space. You can't just be in this defensive, I'm not going to take anything in, and no. It's not going to work. Or if you're lost in that South Node in Virgo, with Mercury, of course, that's dispositing it, right? And just being so, it needs to look this specific way. No, it doesn't. Kind of reminds me of, like, what did the image pop up that I had made for this week? I think I was like, yo, like, what does this thing like look like? Hold on. I'm logged in. I don't know why the fuck. Oh, it's loading. It's just taking a minute. Oh, well. It's probably because I have way too much shit going on. We'll just come back to that later. Long story short, when you make images on AI, yeah, you can get pretty damn close to what you want. But you're going to have to let go at some point. That's so North Node in Pisces, and let the magic be the magic. Be like, you know what? It made it fucking better than I thought it would. Right? Like, if you're going to be like, it didn't do this color right, and then it added this little extra thing, no matter how much negative prompts you make sure don't put this in and do that. Like, you're going to have to surrender at some point and be like, this is the best it's going to look. And it's probably better if you see it with that place. And that true place where you're like not trying to control, this is where it becomes so focused on this analytical, need to have the exact code of how my life's supposed to look. We are in a new code, a new language of the reality that's going to be forever forward. And we are at that, from this season to here, we're just in this last little pocket here in the end of the zodiac, literally the last season of the whole cycle of closing down that old code and allowing the surrender to new codes and new beautiful energy to come in. So we see on Wednesday, Venus ingresses into Capricorn as it does make that square to Venus, but it does come out and it makes its ingress into Capricorn. And we also are going to see the moon still in Aquarius. But what's interesting is as Venus now comes in, this really activates, we're in Capricorn now. No more of this fucking Saturn, Neptune. You're never going to see Venus, the sun, or Mars ever again in Sag, square Neptune, and Pisces. Ever. Thank God. But ironically, this will be the new place of the big squares to Neptune and Aries, right? Capricorn. So it's already lessons that are for the next decade about, when it comes to your duty and your plan, you better make sure that, you've done your deep spiritual work so that identity isn't based off just pure ego, but it's based off duty and based off, responsibility instead of like the wounded ego being the one that you bring in to the new world. But I do like this energy. I think this will be the first moment in fucking months, if I were to give exact 4 months, that you will feel like, holy shit, something changed. Something shifted. Thank God. Now, of course, Jupiter's making some odd aspects still, and Jupiter's still in square to Chiron. So, going through the healing process isn't easy, but at some point you start feeling the healing working. And I do think that, once we really step into this Venus ingress into Capricorn here and come off the square to Neptune, we can start to build that new framework, right? It's a great time for people to really look at their lives, their job, their career, their relationships, every part of your life, the way that you set up your mind, the way that you set up your values, the way that you set up your home life, your happiness, all the things, your day-to-day life. All these things can be, let's reframe it. Without Pluto now in Capricorn, that was overshooting in many ways, right? Trying to reach too high too fast, right? Like this is a framework of stability that could really be that stairway that's amazing and also really hold things because the duty's there. It's not just slap it as fast as you can on. But I think that there's a lot of rewriting that's happening in a lot of people's lives this week, especially because we have all this Capricorn. Now we do see the moon come into Pisces on Christmas to be with the North Node, Saturn, Neptune. While we do have the sun, Venus, Mars, and we see from the sun's perspective, it's at the midpoint between Mars and Venus, right? We're seeing only a couple degrees plus in that from one side to the other. And so this is a very interesting, seeding event that's happening. It's in many ways like finding that place of where that rewriting of the framework is and really waiting and really setting the new rewire, the new reconfiguration of that to find that right place into the soil that's based off duty, responsibility, and based off our highest meaning spiritually and resetting and rewiring and restructuring this motherfucker the proper way. It's going to feel like if you really do this deeper spiritual work right now, especially about accountability, especially about vulnerability, especially about allowing to be that we all are holding space and we're all receiving that held space, and we have to honor that. Then we can find that beautiful spot in these weeks to come to position that to be that place where we enter into the Stargate of the new energy, or the Hypergate. Christmas, it's an interesting one. You know, there's a lot going on, but what we see up at the skies, you know, at night, it's really Jupiter and Saturn. Now, you can say they're in a trine, but really the trine will happen in Leo and Aries. But it's more that square to Chiron. I think that, you know, Jupiter's retrograde. And when Jupiter's retrograde, let it be retrograde. This is a time where the big things are the things inside, the things in your own world that you have to work on, find emotion, find a better container, take care of more, open up to new inner feelings. This is not the external world that you need. Where am I outputting? So what are you redoing within? This is the last moment of this deep inner work, this Capricorn season. We're moving into a world where it's all going to be about output and living in what the output's like and in the receiving of the output that's in the outside world. This is much more in our own personal space, our own personal lives, and the reconstructing now of a proper, you know, restructuring and finding like this, to me, oh man, I went to a whole different, a whole new way to really restructure and find that solid spiritual place that's like, okay, that's nice. Even though we're coming into a new world and it's going to have a lot of new vibes they'll be redefining in new paint colors and all these kind of beautiful, cool new things. But right now, this is where that deeper inner space is really at. And it's really nice, I think, on Christmas, because I think it really allows us to kind of like reflect with people. Hey, like, what have you, like, I think people are going to be opening up and like really wanting to restore. And really, I feel this, I feel this very deep. People just like out of nowhere starting to come together. Like, I want to go build that shit together too. I want to go create, let's restructure this shit. Like, we could all be doing better. We can all figure shit out better. That's the true meaning of like Christmas, right? Like, aren't we all supposed to just be together and like find a way and love each other and hold space for each other? That's the ultimate gift, right? And what our purpose is together. It's not so much about just looking at your singular self. We're not in a universe that's about that. That's the illusion that Neptune's trying to paint when it went in Aries, right? Oh, it's just going to be about you. No, I mean, you're part of it. You can't erase that Pluto in Aquarius. You can't erase that Uranus coming into Gemini. That trine that dealt with the 64 conjunction. You know, it's not about being so tribal. It's much more about, hey, when it comes to these much more personal experiences that we're going through, like, we have to set what's Capricorn, what's Cancer, the 4th and the 10th, right? The old school way of looking at it, like, you could use like Lily or whatever and just be like, this is the basement and this is the roof, right? So the basement, we have to reconfigure where the base of all this is in our emotional, personal life. And where's it going? We need to put a new roof on it to not let the leaks of the rains and the wets and the drowning feeling that we might have, where it might feel overwhelming. This is where you do surrender and you let go. Get rid of those energies that you're holding on to that harbor guilt, shame, resentment. These are all the themes of the 12th house in Pisces. When we're in there, we're not open to the future. We're not open to the imagination. We're closed. So, this Capricorn energy is definitely giving us a kick in the butt. Like, are you going to still stay this way, or are we going to fucking get making some badass shit? And it doesn't have to do it in a Plutonian way now that Pluto's in Aquarius. Right? Pluto in Aquarius will try to manipulate you and be like, hey, so I know this really radical way for you guys to restructure, right? That's coming. We don't have to deal with that yet. Right? Like, there's digital ID you guys could do. And okay, that's the Aquarian version of it. And you guys could like totally like drop in and out. You don't have to be so involved with everybody. Shut the fuck up. That Pluto Aquarius, we're going to have to tell it, shut the fuck up, because it's going to try and find every way to cool everything off. Okay, and be cold. We're not in that though right now. This is not the time to be cold. The time to be cold is in a month. And that's where the discernment will come to protect what we're restructuring in our lives right now and what we're building from. So we see that on Friday, the day after, this moon will come into conjunction with Saturn, Neptune. We are now counting down the last moon conjunctions with Saturn, Neptune, right? We have one more after this when we're in Aquarius, and then we come into Pisces season, and it's already, boom, in Aries, right? So there's only this one and the next one of a moon being in Pisces to conjunct Saturn, Neptune. There might be that next one right before. I think it's like right as it's all coming in. But like we have to remember that, this is where both of them are direct. So this moon crossing over, and now it's not hard squares except for Mercury. Mercury's beginning the squares over. But it's not exact. So, get out of your head. Especially, I think I already know it all. I know the answer to the universe. You don't. That's your ego. And let's not forget that we have Eris here with Chiron that happens to be creating that apple of discord. And it's just like, let's just throw the disc. Let's cause havoc. And the havoc that's happened has probably been a good thing for us to get to these places. But don't intentionally now just be like, I want to just destroy it and throw in, this is not the time. Like the universe is keeping score the way that Santa does. On Saturday, the 27th here of December, we start seeing, of course, that Sun, Venus, Mars energy that's definitely, we can't see it, but we can feel it. That there's definitely this energy that's wanting to reset. Especially, we did have Mars retrograde this year and Venus retrograde. They both happen to be resetting as we come into January at the exact same degree. Especially look at 18, 19 degrees, 20 degrees of Capricorn. Holy shit. We can start feeling that these are really starting to come into alignment. We see Mercury and trine to Chiron here. And I think this is where that healing that begins, I feel, on as we're approaching Christmas Day, but really become much more easier when we're communicating with that guard down. That moon comes into Aries, and we see the square from the moon, the first quarter square, since that new moon square Neptune. So this is going to be a test. If your ego really knows how to let go of all this subconscious bullshit and focus on the reconstruction, or you're just going to sit in old same patterns and loops and just like, let me just keep destroying my life. Let me just not. But that's where that hold space energy might be needing to do. But we have to remember we can only use so many get out of spiritual light worker fuck up cards. It starts with the work you do on yourself, right? Like this is the time where if we're focused on self, it's your responsibility. I got to focus on, why do I do this issue? What is the pain that I experience? What is the situation I haven't dealt with in my past, Pisces? My past family situations, how I was raised. Those are very interlinked. Very interlinked. Could even be very eerie, like the issues that you went through as a kid popping back up in your life. Like, are you about to go redo that again? Or what your parents did? Like, you have to get to that and heal that little kid. It's not the Leo kid, the one that's out there having fun. It's the Cancer one that's not feeling nurtured. If you're not feeling nurtured, why? What are you doing? Not what is outside doing to you. What are you doing? When we get to Sunday, the 28th of December, we start to see the Sun and Mars, of course, mainly Mars here, begin its aspect to the nodes. We start to see the trine to the south node, sextile to the north node. I think this is just a reminder of like, hey, keep doing this structuring work. Keep building these building blocks here. Keep moving forward in that area, right? Keep doing that really deeper work. We see Chiron retrograde, of course, now 21 degrees, starting to give us a little break from the wounds of Chiron. It's not fully over. The moon will cross that, it'll square that. That'll bring that up. But I think this will be a moment where it's like, wow, I can really feel the healing even more because I'm focused on letting these burdens go and focusing on creating the imaginative ones, focusing on what is spirit guiding. And so the visions are going to be insane, right? The mystical visions that come, that we follow with others that truly have done the work and want to do the work, and we all are holding each other to go create and restructure this reality in preparation for this new earth. That's what's happening. But that Mercury's could be, it's good to have a lot of ideas, but if they're not fact and they're just story, well, then that's where we can get diluted and dilute those ideas, right? It's like, I don't drink alcohol, but when I did, which has been a long time, 2012 I quit, or 2015 I quit alcohol, 2012 I quit weed. Right, I've been sober 11 years coming up. I remember, it's like when somebody you go to that bartender and it's like, yeah, let me get a fucking whiskey. I always got fucking whiskey and something. And I'm like, there's no whiskey in there. This is like water. That's what happens with Mercury and fucking Sag, square Pisces, right? All of this shit. Like, you have all these great ideas, but they're just watered down by your own subconscious bullshit. You just keep watering the potency down because you believe that that's what it is when it's not. We need to be more open than knowing. Okay? Open, not in the sense of I know for sure. And while we're constructing, it's better to be open-minded and be like, you know what? We wanted to build it this way. Let's kind of restructure it this way. It's like, okay, we're not building a house of cards with Pluto to get to the top. Right? We're just doing whatever has the greatest meaning, whatever has the greatest feeling of true spiritual achievement. So you're going to see people also letting go of, especially parts of reality that were based off just the physical. That's not what it's about. It's about these deeper emotional, personal, spiritual spaces that we need to restore. Jupiter in Cancer is here to restore what we've lost for the last 16 years with Pluto that was in Capricorn. And there's a lot of armor and a lot of wounds. There's a lot of thick armor over those wounds. We got to take them off to get to them, to heal them. So when we get to this last day, Monday, it's a pretty chill week. There's not been a week like this chill, this whole fucking last 4 or 5 months. But we do see Mars in great aspect to those nodes. We see the moon coming to Taurus. It's exalted. That definitely helps with Jupiter, of course. So we're going to see some high scores there. Moon in Taurus, Jupiter. We'll be happy by night when it's up in the sky. But you see Mars in Capricorn, and that's interesting, right? It's dispositing Saturn, and it's with Neptune that we can only reconstruct from the spiritual space. We can't construct from an ego space, or only a goal-driven one. It has to be one that has a spiritual purpose to it because it's dispositing Saturn, and Saturn's with Neptune, the ruler of Pisces. And now this is a Mars exalted, this is a Jupiter exalted, and the moon's in Taurus. And we see that moon making great trines to Venus, the sun, and we see Venus and the sun getting close. And we have a new year on the way. But even more so, we have that revival that's coming in the biggest way, January 4th through January 10th. Right? So like this is us. You can't ask for your life to change for the better if you're willing to do this work and be in that vulnerable space. This is that week. This is that week where your number one responsibility is, when you think about the future, did I not show up and fully do my greatest meaning and purpose? Did I abandon myself and think it's the world abandoning me when I really abandoned myself? Right? Did I, for me, one of the things that helps me in my life now as a dad is like, am I going to ever just like have a convo with my kids one day and be like, you know what? Both of them, I gave up. I didn't want to do that spiritual work, so I gave up. I couldn't be vulnerable. I couldn't make changes. I couldn't, right? Are you kidding me? That'd be the worst combo of my life. And that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to set an example for my kids. And we all have to remember that part of Capricorn, and erase reputation for a second, is being an example. This is where we got to be the spiritual example. And this is what it's at now. And if you can be that and live that and honor that, well, yeah, coming into February and this new conjunction to Saturn and Neptune, those big dreams can come true, bigger than ones than you imagined. And you can't gauge bigger by what? More money or what? It's just by more spiritual alignment. Let go of what does it look like? I need to know exactly the little thing, right? Tap into the essence much more. It's kind of interesting that Pluto is really not involved this week. Now, we do end the week, though, with Mercury square Saturn. And, this is where it's like, stop diluting all these ideas, or communicate and think about the repercussions spiritually, because what? You believe it's whatever your idea of things are that don't have the fact. Ground yourself. This Moon and Taurus will be there to help out. I actually don't think this Mercury square Saturn will be horrible. Right? It'll be if you're just so caught up in it needs to be this specific way and having really high expectations with the illusion of expectation that doesn't exist, right? But we do see Mercury, Venus, Mars, the personal planets here, all out of bounds. Now, they're not crazy out of bounds, but they're definitely past that 23.5 degrees. And so this brings us to where we can reconstruct, especially when it comes to our values, the actions we're taking, and how we communicate. With responsibility and with remaining open instead of all-knowing. Chiron, by the way, too, getting ready. It's getting closer to stationing. So the wounds are starting to freeze frame and take a screenshot of underneath the armor. Or you're outside cold and alone with your armor on and acting like there's no wounds underneath the heel, which I would hate to be somebody in that position right now. So I love this. Of course, it kind of leads us into next week where it's like, okay, getting ready for that New Year's energy, but mainly, holy shit, Sun, Venus, Sun, Mars, all coming together. Woo! Really, Atlas going to start coming into view with that shit. And when all the telescopes are looking at Jupiter at night, because the oppositions to Jupiter are starting to come. And 3A Atlas is like right here in Leo, like in the first decan of Leo. Starting to oppose Pluto. And this is where I feel like from Earth, we're going to be like looking with our telescopes, like as if we are, if you ever seen the way that the drawn out telescope was of how Galileo made his, and he was an astrologer, and he used the odds, and he used geometry from astrology to make the first telescope. And the motherfucker's the first one to see Jupiter's moons. And Neptune, without him even realizing it. But to me, this is such an important moment for us to have this better scope on things a wider scope, but also a focused scope of what's got true meaning, and to allow these wounds to be healed, and really to start to see, as we're coming into alignment, this huge kind of new, there's some haze still, but the more that we surrender and the more that we really become vulnerable and engaged and willing to receive and let the universe, remember, we all come from a womb. Let the universe wrap around you. Accept that. Don't be so harsh and push everything away. Right? Receive right now this beautiful blessing from the universe to restructure things, to make things much more in a higher spiritual calling, and to learn those lessons instead of deny them. Act like you already know everything. It's the worst place you could be, and you can't feel love when you're in that place. I can't describe it, but you can't feel love at all. You can only truly feel love in the highest form when you are in that place, when you've taken your ego down and you're willing to listen to God. You're willing to listen to your partner. You're willing to listen and not deflect or not be in defense or not be, I know everything, or take everything so critical, right? Because that South Node of Virgo is saying, get out of it. Don't take it so critically. Because the meaning behind everything is trying to connect, trying to hold space, but we don't allow that space to be held if we put up our Chiron and Aries defenses, or we take it as critical when it could be more a message from the universe, a message coming through somebody that's from God. You can't have that if you, everything and everybody, I know better, motherfucker. That ain't gonna do shit. So here's that helio chart. Of course, we know Saturn and Neptune, they made their conjunction a couple weeks ago during Neptune direct, stationary direct from the Geo. But it is interesting that they're still conjunct. And so the universe has been reconstructing this in the ether. We also have been seeing this Eris, Chiron, and Ceres. We have finally seen Ceres move off this triple conjunction. But, it feels like the wound is full of discord, but there is this energy that's trying to kind of form in how we nurture or create or hold on to our wounds in the beautiful way by accepting them, mothering them. And that the strength right now in the leaders with all this Aries especially are the spiritual ones, are the ones that are okay with the wounds. They're not worried about their reputation. In the old world, they'd rather base their reputation off merit, spiritual merit, holding space, the divine warrior, right? Not this propped up version of things. We also see Uranus about to come into Gemini. We're so fucking close. And that's what's so interesting is when we do see Sun, Mars, Venus together, Uranus pops into Gemini in the helio. And all outer planets will now be, from the helio perspective, Sun's point of view, and the Sun in the center, finally in their new signs. And so, my Christmas gift to you, of course, we'll be back for New Year's stuff, but right before the New Year, my gift to you is that the universe is giving us the biggest gift of all. You can reconstruct, redefine, reframe the most beautiful things in your life if you're willing to take all this fucking subconscious shit down, your ego down, and truly receive and truly let the womb of the universe come into you and not be fucking kicking it out of the way. And to be okay with, I'm not perfect, I fucked up, be accountable. You got to learn to not just be forgiving, but to ask for forgiveness in life too. And if you just even take after this week, as we come into January after this, right? With Mercury, that's 3.5 degrees a day. Venus, it's over 1 degree a day. Mars, it's about almost 1 degree a day. You just do the clicks to Pluto. Once all three of these in the weeks ahead to a month ahead come on the other side of Pluto, every planet will be back to one side of the 180 degrees of the zodiac. And this is going to be when the experience on a collective is going to be felt in the biggest way. So we're preparing for that, and this is the best astrology we've had in almost half a year. to finally get back so you can let go of that kind of spiritual hesitation of like, oh my God, is something bad going to happen? Well, that's your mind in the square to Saturn, Neptune this week. But everything else is saying the otherwise. Follow that. Get your mind out of it. The mind, we can't use the mind in Sag. It's useless. It's only good for, oh, I didn't realize. Let me be open to that. Right? We can't be in the all-knowing. I know it's going to go bad. I know it's going to be bad. And especially with the illusion that Pisces can bring, and it's really just the illusion that's your subconscious wanting to fester and survive. Whenever we're squashing something that's unconscious or subconscious especially, it's just like a parasite. Oh, it wants to survive. So it'll have you do something fucking dumb to keep it thriving. No, this is where we squash that shit. And it takes that action in Capricorn to be reconstructing and building something and having meaning and having that purpose of what it's about to really be defined. And I think it's a beautiful thing. Again, I appreciate you all. Make sure that you join me on highvibe.tv. Be a subscriber on any of the app stores or, of course, on highvibe.tv. Of course, check out those awesome apps that I've done in AI. Hypergate AI, of course, is the big one, especially for astrology freaks. The best AI there was ever. It'll blow your fucking mind. I'm not even kidding. It'll be the best AI tool you ever had. And then for those that are into psychic, tarot, and channeling and all that, spiritdial.ai. And for those into past lives, pastlifelabs.com. All the links are down below in here. I appreciate you all very much. Merry Christmas to you and your family, and Happy New Year, or just Happy Holidays if you're not into that. I'm a dad, so I'm all about Santa now. You know, taking our kids to Santa. Sophia and I, we've been just doing that. It's very beautiful to watch. I love it. I love this part of my life. I thank you all very much. I'll see you all in the next one on highvibe.tv. Adios. Bye-bye.
Misery.